So yeah, this is my journey, and as I say, I've called it How to Write a Book, and I'm an author and also public speaker as well, as some of you guys I've met before already know. But on the screen here, you can see our little logo in the middle. So our company is called the Future Toolbox, and as I mentioned right at the start, when we were all just chatting about the room, we've just set up as a community interest company as well to support various different people from different walks of life. But predominantly we've been working with teenagers, mainly in schools, in mainstream education, and also colleges as well. So it's been a whole lot of fun. And our background, we worked with post-16 education. This is way before my brain injury. And I helped over 650 young people get their first jobs, training life skills and everything. So that's been my background. Whilst I was working there, I met my wife Jules, and we decided to set up our own business as a Future Toolbox in 2009. Now, there's another important person to introduce you to there. The little guy holding the spanner, his name's Milo, and we created a little cartoon character for our logo. And the reason why we did that is, number one, it stands out on your logo, but number two, if you enjoy what you're doing whilst you're learning, then that helps you to get the best from your learning. And when we go into schools and talk about learning and education, lots of people have this fixed mindset that learning is just about studying and taking exams. So a couple more pictures on there. I'm going to talk about the books a little bit later, but there's two pictures of us on stage there, and we're multi-award winning in what we do as well. So we were named the best enterprise in business in 2018 and 2019. And we're finalists in 2020, but that didn't happen for some very obvious reason. So the finals have been rolled over to 2021 in June. So we're hoping that we can pick up another award there. Now, this is a little bit about writing a book. So obviously I'm a speaker, I stand on stage and speak in front of people, but becoming an author was something that was, I suppose, born as a child. So when I was at lower school, we used to have on a Monday, we'd have a lesson where you had to write about what you did at the weekend. And at the time, my mum was married to my stepdad, and he was a really, really good driver, stock car racer. So we used to go all around the country stock car racing. So of course, like, what did you do at the weekend, Mark? Well, I went stock car racing, and I used to write all these stories about what had happened. And my teacher became quite frustrated that I was writing about the same thing every single week. But my mum was pretty cool about that on parents' evening, saying, well, you ask him to write about his weekend and he does. So, you know, I had a great imagination at that time and creativity for writing. But then in 2008, I decided to write a book about my football club, Northampton Town Football Club. And I've also been an editor of the fanzine there, which Gaz will know what a fanzine is. And this is a fans magazine. So I just collected a lot of stories and wrote my first book, which was called We All Follow the Cobblers Over Land and Sea. And at that time, Gaz, we actually played Man City in the league when that book came out. So there you go. But how do you write a book? Well, I'll put this on the screen here to show you how complicated it can be. It's a good idea to have an editor and a publisher. It's a good idea to be good at grammar. Obviously, you want to put it on Amazon. You want to sell it in bookshops. You know, if your paragraphing and your grammar and all that is wrong, people are going to notice that straight away. You've got to advertise it. You've got to structure the chapters. Is anybody put off by writing a book now? I'm sure you probably are, because you're probably all sitting there thinking, Mark, I've got a brain injury too.
No, you're inspiring.
A lot of work. So would you like to know the easy way to write a book? Yeah? You can say yes if you want, or you can just nod.
Yeah, a ghost writer.
The easy way to write a book, I'm going to put on the next screen for you. Ignore the 36 days at the moment. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. The key to writing a book, the easy way, is to start writing. Okay, obviously you need to have an idea. You need to know what you're going to write about, but just start writing and then don't look back. So it's as simple as that. You've just got to start. And it's the same with anything with goals in life. So this book here, What the Hell Just Happened, was published last year. And Jules, my wife, had this idea of telling her story about living with me with brain injury and how I changed from being a confident motivational speaker to being a guy who basically avoided social situations sometimes and had lost a lot of confidence and was going through anxiety, depression and everything. We didn't even know what that was at the time. So for those of you that don't know, my story was I had a brain injury in 2012 and I was told I needed to have a craniotomy in order to stop the swelling from touching my brain. And I decided not to have that operation. And then 8 weeks later, I was signed off and told to go and live my life as normal. And you can imagine a motivational speaker who's fit and active, what living life as normal is. It's living it to the max, really. So Jules decided to write this story. And originally she was going to get a ghostwriter involved to share her story. But then, you know, we published our previous book and I said, well, why don't we write the book ourselves? And I'd like to write my side of the story as well. So we decided, let's do that. Let's share our story from both points of view, living with a brain injury or living with somebody who lives with a brain injury. And we worked around and spoke to a few people in the meantime. And we came across a lovely lady called Cassandra Farron, who'd recently written a book called I've Lost My Mum. And it was a story about how she'd lost her mum to dementia. Now, her mum was still alive at the time, but her mum didn't even know who she was. So she wrote a story about how she dealt with her mum dealing with dementia. So we hooked up with this lady and she said, right, okay, the best thing to do is to start writing. 36 days later, we finished our draft manuscript. Now, I'm going to say to you guys that most people don't write a book in 36 days. So please don't think, if you're thinking about writing a book, oh my God, I've got a month to do this book. Please, please, please don't think that at all. Our other book, What They Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed, which is a life skills book, and you can see Milo holding on the screen there, it took us about 2.5 years to write. So there's no time limit, but just start writing. So where do you write? Well, write in places that gives you inspiration. One of our favourite places was when we were travelling. This is how we started writing. Now, our book, Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed, which is this one here, this is a life skills book. I actually started writing that book on a beach one day. I pulled out my phone and I just started writing in the notes section. Nothing glamorous, nothing spectacular. I just started writing down ideas. The ideas evolved. So this is a personal development book I wanted to write. Then I came up with an idea. Should we call it the A to Z of life skills? But everybody does A to Z of life skills. But at this point, it didn't matter. I didn't need a title. I just needed to keep writing, keep writing, keep writing, little bits, little and often, sitting on the beach, typing on my phone. And then that gave me an idea. Okay, I've created some A to Z of life skills now. How about I call it the Z to A of life skills? Because that's a little bit catchy, isn't it? So we came up with this catchy idea of reversing the life skills. Then the next idea came, okay, we've got a little character in our logo. His name's Milo. So how about Milo's the character in the story and he experiences the life skills? This story is now unveiling where we've got the Z to A of life skills. Milo's the character. So our book is unveiling as we're going on our travels, on the beach, sitting in the park, sitting in a coffee shop, sitting on the sofa, wherever our mind just took us to write. So I constructed the book and then Jules started putting it together and started writing little bits and adding bits in. What a dream team, eh? It was called Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed because I had a student years ago that had a horrendous tattoo on his neck and he couldn't get a job. He couldn't get through the interview stage. And somebody said to me one day, you should write a book about life skills. And I said to him that day, I'm going to write a book called Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed. So he now features in my book and he doesn't even know it. The next really exciting thing is when you've got the manuscript done, you have to think about the book launch. But the biggest problem is imposter syndrome sometimes kicks in and you think, how can I call myself an author? I haven't even got the book yet. But you go to print on demand and your book arrives through the post and you get a draft copy of your book and you start giving it out to read and it starts to feel real. So this is some book launches we've done. The one in the bottom corner there with me with a hat on was my very first accidental book launch. How do you have an accidental book launch? Well, I've written my book about the football club, and the football club supporters trust was putting on a quiz that night. And some guy said, "Oh, your book's out, isn't it? Why don't you bring some along and sell it?" So we took a couple of boxes of books. They gave me a table in the corner and said, "Why don't you sign them?" And I was thinking, I can't sign my book. I can't even write my name properly. It doesn't look very neat. But I sat there and we sold quite a lot of books. That was published in 2008. It's actually still our best-selling book, believe it or not. So Gaz, you might support Man City, I support Northampton Town, and people buy my book. How does that work? The top corner there with 5 of us standing there, there's some real special people in our lives that we met through writing our book. So obviously that's me in the second along. That's my lovely wife Jules with the glasses next to me. The couple standing either side of us are really lovely friends called Michael and Melissa, and they've designed 2 of our book covers. So they're graphic designers and they're incredibly creative. And the lady on the end with the blue dress on, her name's Cassandra Farron, and she's the author of So I Lost My Mum and various other books. And from meeting Cassandra, we clicked straight away. So we didn't just write our book with her. She didn't edit or publish our book. She guided us, and she guided us spiritually as well. We did a lot of meditation sessions in between our book writing. We had lots of NLP type sessions with Cassie as well. So sort of coaching along the way and mindfulness sessions with her. And I'm actually meeting up with her next week. So really lovely friend. And she said, "I'll tell you what, I've actually set up a company called Welford Publishing. Would you like that on the back of your book? I'll do that free of charge and register it for you." So now our book's published by Welford Publishing, but we own all the rights to it. The one there, me standing next to the lady holding my book, Don't Get Your Name Tattooed, holding our book there, was at a local coffee shop run by my friend who supports autism. He supports young people with autism going into employment. And it's a beautiful setup. And he said one day, "Mark and Jules, why don't you come down and have a little book launch in our cafe?" So we just walked down to Northampton Market Square with a box full of books, stood on a table, not literally on the table, but behind it. And people came in and they're like, "Oh, wow, what's this?" And our books have been out for a long time. So a book launch doesn't have to be on the day you launch it. And then the one that I haven't told you about, the black and white one, is Jules signing a copy at our official What the Hell Just Happened launch at a local golf club. And we had about 60 people turned up to support us that evening. It was 2 weeks before we went into lockdown, so we were able to just about hug people at that point as well. So that was really, really nice. This is another nice thing about being an author. So the picture there, me and Jules standing either side of a lady called Rachel, who's a good friend of ours. She's also a fellow author. And we said to her one day, "Oh, wow, can we buy a copy of your book?" And she went, "Can I buy a copy of your book?" And we went, "Tell you what, should we just swap them?" So that was quite nice. She's written a book for teenagers called The Circus of Life there. And that's our old cover, by the way. We changed the cover. Man in the middle holding 2 books there. I met him at business networking. He MOT'd my car. And he said, "Tell you what, I'd love to buy a couple of your books and donate them to some local schools." So there he is buying 2 books. And I said, "Actually, do you know what? I'm going to one of the schools next week." So the lady on the end there is the librarian at Guilsborough School in Northamptonshire. And I went, "Do you know this guy called Ben Lane? He's a big part of this school. And here's a book that he's donating." And she went, "Wow, brilliant." Stamped it, labelled it all up. And there she is putting it on the bookshelf in the library of the school. So things like that, that's what it's really important about being an author. Now, you always think of books and you think of Amazon. And if you're an author and you're not on Amazon, then it's pretty much like not having a right hand. You really need to be on Amazon if you're an author. Amazon's a bit of a pain in the backside sometimes, but you've got to be there. But one nice thing about it is when somebody buys a book and they leave a review for you. And Emma left that second review there. And she said, "I bought this book for a friend who had a serious brain injury 4 years ago." This is obviously What the Hell Just Happened. The situation was very similar. Helped him realize everything he is going through. I read it in an afternoon and he's going to give it to his daughter so he can try and understand the struggles that he still has. Very good, highly recommend that. Now, I've never met Emma. I don't know who Emma is. I don't know where Emma lives in this country, but to actually receive that review was just amazing, because we know that our story was read by somebody in an afternoon, and then they've helped 2 other people by reading our book. That's pretty amazing. That's really, really incredible. So that's what being an author is all about. Yeah, I might have made 2 or 3 quid off of Amazon for that book, but I'm not fussed about that. And at the bottom there, we've got a lot of 5 out of 5 5-star reviews on Amazon as well. So when you get stuff like that come through, that's really, really powerful. So I'm going to finish by giving you a few little tips on how to write a book, but I'm going to take the words "a book" off the end and just say how to write. So the first thing is, like anything, you need to start with an idea. You know, you can't really go forward without an idea, can you? Have the idea, but believe in it and believe in yourself, because your self-belief is the thing that's going to propel you forward in your mindset. The next thing is always write forwards. Now, you might say, Mark, what do you mean by that? I'm not going to write backwards. No, write forwards. Start at a point, start writing your story, your book, or whatever you're writing. But don't worry at this stage, like, oh, I've written 2 paragraphs, let me spell check them, and then I'll get my friend Karen to read them. No, just write. Just keep writing. I've probably hammered that point home a few times, but just keep going. Now, when we wrote What the Hell Just Happened, Cassie, our friend, did read and edit the book as we were going through it. So that was a little bit of an unusual process. Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed, we wrote all the way through to the end before we started adding bits in and changing it. Write little and often. Okay, we wrote our book in 36 days, but in that 36 days, we probably wrote between 2,000 and 3,000 words a day. So we didn't write the whole thing in one go. Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed was just writing little bits, little and often. Same with the other 2 or 3 books we've got. Also write from the heart. So if this is your story, What the Hell Just Happened is our story. It's very personal. It was really hard to write, I'll be honest with you, at times. And we had a lot of tears over it, especially when we both got to the bit where Jules lost her mum, which is in the story. That was really, really hard to write. When Jules got diagnosed with breast cancer, that was really, really difficult to talk about. When I talked about the time I hit a real low point, that was really hard, but we had to follow our heart. The next one's opinions versus facts. So in our book, Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed, we quote a lot of facts in there, but you've got to make sure you back them up. You can't just say, oh, according to my friends, they think this, that's a fact. If you're going to put an opinion in there, make sure that people know it's your opinion or the opinion of. So be really, really careful of misquoting stuff. That's where an editor's always good. A lot of us will have writer's block as well. You know, that moment where you walk into a room and think, what did I come in this room for? Now, you could spend 10 minutes in that room trying to remember it, or if you go away and do something else, it comes back to you. Oh, God, yeah, I went in that room because I needed a cup, whatever it is. Writer's block works exactly the same. If you have writer's block, just put the stuff down, move away from it, go for a walk, relax, meditate, do whatever you want to do, because it will soon come back to you. The worst thing is when it comes back to you in the middle of the night, but there you go. So I've talked about writing a book, but you don't have to write a book. You could write a blog, and you don't have to be a great writer to write a blog. You could, I've read a few blogs that have got a few spelling mistakes in, but they're engaging because people have written them from the heart. You could also write a journal. Great thing about a journal is you don't have to show it to anybody else, but the release of writing your story is massive sometimes. When we wrote What the Hell Just Happened, my life changed when I actually wrote it down and put into context what I'd gone through in my life. That changed my life because all of a sudden I was able to release some of the trauma. So do look at things like that. Look at other ways of writing. You haven't got to be an author, publish your book. Now, there is one very sad thing about Amazon is anybody could literally write a book and put it on Amazon and it can be live within 2 days. You can put any old rubbish on Amazon, putting it bluntly, with a really, really nasty cover and charge people £10 for it, and you'll get loads of bad reviews. It's too easy to do that. So if you do write a book and publish it, yes, you want to make sure it's edited properly. You want to make sure the grammar's right, because otherwise people will just pick up on the negative parts of it. So write from the heart, write a book, write a journal, write a blog. But one thing I'd encourage you guys to do when we go away from here today is just write something. Write something about your life. Now, don't sit there and think, oh, my life's worth nothing. Nobody wants to hear my story. That's what a lot of people will say, but we've all got a story to tell. Write your story. You don't have to publish it. You don't have to show it to anybody, but try it as a release from your trauma. So there's our book catalogue there. And we're actually quite diverse in what we do because we work with teenagers. We've written these books. Smart in Your Studies, our latest one. It shows teenagers how to revise. We also do have a journal, which is just a blank journal. Be honest with you, that didn't take a lot of writing, but I still had to lay it out. Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed was the longest book for us to write, which took about 2.5 years. But I love that book. And even when I read it myself, I still can't believe that we wrote that. What the Hell Just Happened is our story of brain injury, as I've just talked about. Jules being diagnosed with breast cancer and losing her mum. And We All Follow the Cobblers Over Land and Sea. It was actually Waterstones in Northampton's best-selling book by a local author in 2018. What the Hell Just Happened and Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed have also been shortlisted for awards as well. So it's quite nice to get that accolade. So here's a quote here, and I'm sure some of you guys might have heard that, but it says, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. And that sums up anything in life. And that features in Don't Get Your Neck Tattooed. Henry Ford said, if you think you can do it, the chances are you can do it. But if you think you can't, the chances are you probably won't do it. Whichever way you look at it, you're right. And it's all down to your mindset. Whether you go away from here today, decide to write or not, that's absolutely fine. But remember that quote there, because if you decide one day you want to go for a walk around the park and you think you can't do it, the chances are you won't. If you think that your memory is going to fail you today, the chances are your memory will fail you today. If you think today is going to be a bad day because I feel a bit brain foggy, we all get it, don't we? You're going to be right. Your brain's going to fog out or whatever it is. So what I'd love you guys to do is I'm going to pop this in the chat in a second with some links on there. I'd love you to follow. We've got a lovely new brand and a new website as well. I'm not going to say to you, please buy my book, because I'm not a sales guy. If you guys want to do that, that's you. I'd love you to follow our free content on social media. Our little goal is to get up to 100 subscribers on YouTube. I'm on 89 at the moment. So if you guys all subscribe to YouTube, you'll help me there with a little bit of statistics to get to our next YouTube goal. But we're all over social media as well. And I'm obviously in the groups. If you guys have got any questions or anything you want to ask about writing or personal development as well, just drop me a line. I'm always happy to share stuff for free.